Hi everybody, this is Noelle from Petitti's, and we are going to talk about Japanese beetles. It is midsummer, really kind of early July, and you really, if you have them, the adult beetles have been flying around for about 2 weeks. So I wanted to talk to you about Japanese beetle life cycle, what you're really looking for, how to prevent them from coming to your garden, and then also how to protect your garden if you already see them. Okay, so this time of year is really a great time to kind of scout the garden, inspect, make sure that you're looking around for Japanese beetles, adult beetles. So they're pretty distinguished. They have sort of a bronzy, purple iridescent wing. They have black heads. They're slightly green as well. We know them pretty well. So looking for them mid-June, they will eat and they will lay eggs, mate, I should say, and then the females will lay eggs in the lawn typically from mid-June, really starting to get out there end of June, beginning of July, where you start to see more and more damage. And then they'll usually feed for about 4 to 6 weeks, okay? So that's the adult. But what we want to do is we want to pay attention to the actual larva or that stage of the plant. So we usually talk about the C-shaped white grubs with a brown head. And so at this time of year, I want you to make sure that you inspect your lawn areas because you might see those white grubs in the lawn. And whenever your lawn is sort of yellowing, it looks like it's drying out, but it's kind of spongy and getting thin, you might have grubs there, okay? So before this time, usually in, let's say, June, if you find that happening to the lawn, go ahead and dig like a square foot area, 1 square foot, dig down maybe 2 to 3 inches into the lawn and just kind of roll back that flap of grass. And if you see about 10 to 12 white grubs in that area, you have a problem and you do want to work on preventing and also controlling Japanese beetles, okay? This can also happen, you might not see anything happen in June, but then when we get into August and September, and you see these areas that are brown, or excuse me, yellow and spongy and, you know, are very thin in the lawn, you can do the same thing, cut that square foot of turf out, flip it up, and look to see how many grubs you have in that area. Again, 10 to 12 is a lot, and you really should work on controls, okay? With that, so I want to talk to you about preventing them, and of course, prevention is the best medicine. And so it's very, very easy to do, especially if you plan early. So GrubEx, I'm going to tell you, is really the best at preventing your white Japanese beetle grubs, okay, or larvae. And so if you put this down anywhere from, let's say, April through July, you are going to get 4 months of control of the grubs, so they will not become adults in your yard, okay? So this is an excellent, excellent treatment. If you have had adult Japanese beetles around, or if you have seen grubs early on in the lawn, then this would be something to work. The other thing, if you're looking for more of a natural control, you could try something like Milky Spore as a preventative, okay? Milky Spore is very unique in that it is just a bacteria that invades Japanese beetle grubs, okay, or the larvae, and then it makes them die, of course, in the soil, and then the spores continue to kind of proliferate through the soil. So as more grubs come, they ingest it and they end up dying. The trick with this is, and normally you have to follow the directions with this, you apply it 3 times a year for 2 years in a row. So a spring, summer, and fall application, repeat that the next year. And at that point, your soil, your lawn soil, is typically inoculated, so you do not see the grubs, and hopefully, again, you would not see the adult Japanese beetle. So very, very good preventatives here. Keep that in mind, all right? The last product that I wanted to show you, because again, it's for a lawn treatment, is at that time in later summer, August and September, if you're noticing that you have that 10 to 12 grubs in a square foot spot of the lawn, this is what we call 24-hour grub killer. This is from Bio Advanced. It is an instant kill treatment. So if you're finding that you have that trouble late summer again, this would be the product that would take care of those grubs immediately, okay? So do be aware of those. Now, if you're starting to see the adults flying around in the area, or you're starting to notice that the leaves on your roses or your hardy hibiscus or your rose of Sharon, raspberries, boy, they like grapes. Those are normally their biggest plants. I'm going to tell you, fruiting trees, your cherries, your apples, peaches, plums, they love those too. And if you have an ornamental variety of those trees, they like those as well. So keep your eyes out for, they are a chewing insect. The adult Japanese beetle is a chewing insect, so you're gonna see holes. And what they do is they eat so much that they skeletonize the leaves. They leave the veins in the foliage, but they will eat everything in between the veins, okay? So watch out for that damage. Try to control before you get to that point. There's a couple things you can do. You can actually use a row cover or a fine mesh netting and cover those plants to keep the Japanese beetles out of the area. So that's something that you can do physically to kind of keep them away. The next thing that I would recommend is using your topical sprays to keep the adult beetles, okay, away from the plant material. You have natural sprays. You also have chemical sprays. Both of them work. It just depends on what you want to use. I'm going to tell you that Japanese Beetle Killer, this is pyrethrins, so it's a natural occurring insecticide. Tomato and vegetable from Bonide. This is fine to use again in the garden. It is a natural, but it does have that pyrethrin active ingredient. Or something like this, Rose RX 3-in-1. This is neem oil. So neem oil works very, very well with controlling Japanese beetles. When you're spraying natural controls, you want to spray the bug. See the bug, spray the bug. That's going to give you the best control. I want you to do that in the evening when there's low pollinator activity and also when it's below 85 degrees. You don't want to be spraying any type of pesticide when it's above 85 degrees. It's just too hot, okay? So you could burn your plants, do some other damage in that way, okay? The others that I have, 7 is very well known for Japanese beetle control. 8, next step up. And then also this is annual tree and shrub insect control. This is a drench systemic insecticide that you would apply to maybe a rose or a cherry, weeping cherry tree. The plant would absorb it into its system, and then it would control the Japanese beetles from the inside out, okay? So these are available as well. Please use the same precautions when you are spraying any type of insecticide. You want to do it in the evening again and when it's under 85 degrees outside. Okay, so these are some protections. The other thing that you can do, and I'm sure you've seen people do it before, is you can hand pick those Japanese beetles, throw them in a bucket with soapy water, no problem, that works. It can get very tedious depending on what you have out in the garden and what they're eating. You can also place the beetle bags, the Japanese beetle bags, out in the garden, but I want you to stick it in the furthest corner away from the landscape as far as you can go out back. They will draw the Japanese beetles, the adults, away from your plant material, okay? This can be effective if you and your neighbor and your other neighbor are all setting the beetle traps in the back and hopefully drawing all of them away, okay? So that can work as well. A couple other things that you want to think about. Underplanting your plant material that the Japanese beetles like with the mint family. Believe it or not, things like catmint, bee balm, lavender, meadow sage. All of those plants are part of the mint family. They do not like mint at all, okay? So that's a good way to kind of repel them out of the area. Your onion family, so your garlics, your ornamental onions, those are great plants as well to plant around maybe something that's a little bit more susceptible, like a rose, to keep them or repel them from that area. So lots of things to keep in mind as far as Japanese beetles. Just remember the life cycle, when you need to control the adults, when you should prevent the larvae or those white Japanese beetle grubs, and then all the other options you have in order to control everything from hand picking to maybe some spray, topical spray controls, okay? Have a great summer. Enjoy.